What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. Interiority isn't just about what a character thinks and feels, it's how they make meaning from what's happening around them. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. One of the trickiest things about writing fiction is giving the reader access to the character's interior thoughts as he or she moves through the action of each scene. Now, for some writers, this comes naturally, but most new writers fall into one of 2 traps. There's either too little interior life or way too much. In many first-time novels, the characters are doing things, they're saying things, the story's moving forward, but there's a missing layer. That missing layer is often interiority. They only show action and dialogue. We don't know how the character is reacting to what's happening. Readers aren't sure what to feel or how to interpret the events because the protagonist isn't thinking his or her way through the action. Without interiority, we're watching the story, but we're not inside of it. On the other end of the spectrum is too much interiority. This is the other extreme. Entire paragraphs of wandering thoughts, reflections, and commentary. Action screeches to a halt, while the character has a monologue about their childhood or their abstract fears. Sometimes there's no action. We're trapped inside the character's head for pages and pages until something happens. This kind of overuse confuses pacing. It can make scenes feel slow or indulgent, even when the writing is good. Every story needs some character interiority, and there's a whole spectrum of how much and how little to include, depending on what kind of story you're writing or the needs of a particular scene. The question is, how do you add character interiority without slowing the pace or drowning the story in the character overthinking? In today's episode, we're breaking down what character interiority is and what it isn't, why it's essential to storytelling, and how to strike the tricky balance between too much and too little so your scenes stay alive with emotion and momentum. I'll give you 5 techniques to use interiority in your scenes. First, what do I mean by interiority? Interiority is the private, internal experience of your character in the moment. The thoughts, perceptions, feelings, and flashes of meaning that make us feel what it's like to be them. It's not just what your character does, it's what it costs them. It's the doubt under the decision. It's the fear under the smile. It's the flicker of memory that catches them off guard. It's the layer that gives us direct access to your character. When it's working, your character doesn't just move through the scene, they live in it. And your reader doesn't just watch it unfold, they feel like they're living it too. When we know what your character is really thinking or feeling, while saying or doing something else entirely, it creates this irresistible tension. There's a gap between a character's public mask and their private truth, the gap between what's said and what's felt. And that gap is where the story gets its emotional charge. It's where the story starts to resonate. The contrast between action and emotion is what keeps readers leaning in. It's the job interviewee saying all the right things while silently thinking, I'm totally unqualified for this. It's the parent tucking her kid into bed at night while worrying about how she's going to pay for food that week. So the inner world collides with the external reality. That contrast between what they say or do and what they actually feel invites the reader deeper into the story. It gives us double vision. We see what's happening and what it means emotionally. It makes your reader feel like an insider, like they're in on something the other characters in the story don't quite know yet. It doesn't just tell the story, it pulls the reader inside it. And that is addictive. Okay, here's what interiority is not. It is not backstory. Backstory is the history. It's backfill on what happened before page 1. But that's not character interiority. Interiority is present moment feeling. Interiority is also not introspection dumps, long static reflection. Interiority should move with the scene as your character moves through space and time within the scene. Interiority is not exposition. It's not just information. Interiority is subjective and often conflicted. Readers crave character interiority because it builds empathy and connection. It gives them a stake in the story. Here's a great example of interiority at work from The Hunger Games. In this scene, Katniss is volunteering to take her sister's place in the games. This is a fight to the death, and Katniss doesn't want Prim to take that risk. Her inner experience deepens the moment. I volunteer, I hear myself say. My heart slams against my ribs. I can't feel my legs. All I see is Prim's face, frozen in shock. What have I done? So that moment moves the plot forward, but what makes it emotionally unforgettable isn't just the action, it's the interiority underneath it. Now, if the author had only written what Katniss did, we'd understand the event, but we wouldn't feel the weight of it. We feel her fear in her physical body, heart slamming against her ribs, numb legs. We feel her protective instinct. Her attention goes straight to Prim. And we feel her doubt. What have I done? It's a tiny, raw moment of emotional fallout. So now we're not just watching a brave gesture, we're inside the cost of that bravery. That's the power of interiority. It gives meaning to the action, meaning to what's happening. It invites the reader to experience not just what's happening, but what it feels like to live it. It's the pulse behind the action. Okay, here's another example from Elena Ferrante's novel, My Brilliant Friend. For context, the main character, Elena, has always been the good girl, praised by teachers, supported to a degree by her family. She works hard in school and follows the rules. But then her friend Lila writes something brilliant. Their teacher, Maestro Ferraro, reads it and is so impressed, he can't stop talking about Lila's potential. He shows Elena and her classmates this dazzling story that Lila wrote, despite the fact that Lila isn't even attending school anymore. This moment is devastating for Elena. She suddenly feels inadequate. She feels invisible. Her efforts aren't praised the same way. And she feels conflicted. She loves Lila, but she's also jealous, angry, and afraid that she'll always come in second. And so she goes home, closes herself in the bathroom, and does something small and intimate. Here's the excerpt. I felt I was disappearing from the world. I was nothing at all. I went home. I closed myself in the bathroom. I opened the drawer where my mother kept the old notebooks and school papers. I searched among them until I found a composition of mine from the 5th grade. I reread it. I reread it again, and I thought, I was good at writing. I was very good. So why did Maestro Ferrero speak only of Lila? Why did he never mention me? Okay, why is this a powerful use of interiority? Well, it's raw emotion in real time. Elena doesn't filter her thoughts. She names her feeling. I was nothing at all. It's not polished reflection. It's immediate and unprocessed. There's sensory and physical action tied to the thought. She doesn't just feel inadequate. She rummages through drawers, rereads old work, and searches for proof of her worth. Her actions mirror her emotional state. There's also contradiction and need. She tries to affirm herself, but can't escape comparison with Lila. This tension, the need to believe in herself versus the constant threat of being outshone, is a core emotional conflict that runs through the novel. What Ferranti does so well in all of her novels is she gives us access to the private, vulnerable, and often unflattering thoughts a character might not admit out loud. She lets emotional truth live alongside contradiction. Elena can be both proud of her talent and desperate for external validation in the same breath. Interiority isn't just about what a character thinks and feels. It's how they make meaning from what's happening around them. Let me say that again. Interiority isn't just about what a character thinks and feels. It's how they make meaning from what's happening around them. Okay, now that we know what interiority is and why it matters, let's talk about how to actually use it in your scenes. Because interiority isn't one size fits all. It operates on a spectrum from subtle to explicit. Some moments call for just a flicker of thought or a telling gesture. Others need us fully inside the character's body, heart, or mind. So instead of thinking of interiority as a single tool, think of it as a range of techniques you can reach for, depending on the emotion, pacing, and pressure in the scene. So let's walk through 5 of these techniques, ranging from the lightest touch to the deepest dive, that you can start weaving into your scenes right now. Technique number 1 is the micro thought drop. Micro thought drops are one of the most effective and efficient ways to work interiority into a scene without slowing down the pacing. They're short, character-specific thoughts or judgments that slip into the action and reveal emotion, bias, or subtext in a single beat. They're quick internal flashes that feel spontaneous and unfiltered. They show attitude, desire, fear, or frustration, and they add emotional texture without interrupting the scene. You can use a micro thought drop during physical movement. She slid the file across the table a little too fast. He deserved that. So the action is happening. but her resentment slips through, and he, the point of view character, is interpreting it for us. You could use it during a conversation. "I think we should take a break," he said. "Cool, here we go again." You could drop it during an observation. "He walked in wearing that smug grin, like he owned the room." You can use it while narrating events. "She waved to the group across the street. No one waved back." Not surprising. That final thought adds a sting of rejection and character insight. You can use it while performing routine tasks. "She stirred the soup. Still no text. Of course." The thought, "of course," reveals impatience or disappointment without over-explaining. Micro thought drops work because they maintain the momentum of action or dialogue. They add emotional layering. They can make your character's point of view feel more vivid, intimate, and alive. And they offer subtext, often revealing something your character won't say out loud. For example, when Katniss volunteers to stand in for her sister, her thought is, "What have I done?" That's a micro thought drop. So when revising a scene, you want to look at dialogue beats, physical movements, transitional moments, and then ask, what's one line of inner reaction I could drop in here that shows how my character really feels? It could be sarcasm, denial, longing, anxiety, mistrust. The key is to keep it brief. A few words is often enough. Okay, on to technique number 2, implied interiority. Not all interiority needs to be a full sentence of thought or a clearly named emotion. Sometimes your character won't or can't put their feelings into words. They might be overwhelmed, in denial, or simply trying to hold it all together. Here's an example from Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. Olive's adult son visits with his new wife. She had baked his favorite tart. She had set out the good linen, and when they left, she stood by the window with her arms crossed, watching their car disappear down the drive. Then she sat at the table and picked a seed from her teeth. Okay, why does this work as implied interiority? There's no thought like she felt unwanted or she missed her son, but her gestures, standing at the window with her arms crossed, watching their car disappear, the seed in her teeth, sitting alone at the table, are all her interiority. They suggest emotion without naming it, which actually makes them hit harder. Inferred interiority lets the reader feel what your character won't admit, not even to themselves. It's not that the emotion isn't there, it's that it's carried by image, behavior, and silence. And sometimes that restraint makes it all the more powerful. We feel the weight of that moment through what she does and what she doesn't say. Here are some more examples. He smiled and waved, then folded the receipt into a perfect square, and another, and another. We're not told he's nervous, but his precision says it. These quiet actions act like emotional tells that let the reader feel what's happening without the character spelling it out. So as you revise, ask, what is my character doing that portrays what they're feeling? Can a gesture reveal more than a sentence of explanation? Sometimes the deepest feelings are the ones we can't quite say. And when you show that through a small, precise action, your story starts to resonate beneath the surface. It's not absent of interiority, it's just held back. And that restraint can be just as powerful as a full emotional reaction. Okay, on to technique number 3, the half-revealed thought. Sometimes your character won't fully name what they're feeling. Instead, they'll do something emotionally loaded. They'll leave a question hanging or fold the same napkin 3 times, and then we'll get a flicker of thought that hints at the emotion underneath, but doesn't say it outright. It gives us just enough interiority to feel something deeper at play without fully unpacking it. For example, she stared at the suitcase. It had been packed since yesterday. She wasn't ready, not really, but what else was there to say? That last line, but what else was there to say, is the half-revealed thought. It doesn't tell us everything she's feeling, but it gives us the echo of something withheld: grief, fear, resignation. So you want to show a puzzling action, then a half-revealed thought. This forces readers to lean in close to close the emotional gap. This works because it mirrors how people think when they're overwhelmed or guarded. It lets the reader participate. They pick up on subtle cues, and it keeps the momentum moving while still revealing interior depth. So when you're revising a scene, you want to look for a moment where your character says or does something emotionally charged. You want to look for a place to drop in just a line or fragment of thought, one that hints at meaning but leaves space for the reader to fill in what's not said. Sometimes the most compelling thing your character can say is the thing they don't fully say. Okay, on to technique number 4, embodied interiority. You want to let bodily sensations mirror hidden emotion. Sometimes your character won't name what they're feeling. They won't think, I'm anxious, or I'm furious, or I'm about to cry. But their body will tell us everything. It's a physical reaction that mirrors a hidden emotion. A jaw tightens, a stomach churns, the breath catches. These physical cues are for moments where the character's emotional state leaks through in ways they might not even be aware of. And because they're so immediate, this kind of interiority pulls the reader deeper into the moment. They add tension, they add truth, and they keep the story moving. For example, in The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, Theo doesn't say, I'm scared or I'm panicking. Instead, we get a buzzing in the teeth, a ringing in the ears. That's a body tell. We feel his dread through the physical symptoms of it. You want to use embodied interiority, especially when your character is trying to hide or suppress emotion, or if there's high tension but low dialogue, or whenever you want to deepen a moment without slowing it down. So ask yourself, what is my character's body doing that they aren't saying? Sometimes the truth of a scene lives not in the line of dialogue or the internal monologue, but in the hands, the breath, the gut. Think of Katniss right after she volunteers to replace her sister in the Hunger Games. She doesn't say, I'm terrified. Instead, we get, my heart slams against my ribs. I can't feel my legs. Her fear and shock live in the physical reaction, and we feel it without her having to explain it. So it gives us a visceral, felt experience of her emotional state. It's inside her point of view, but doesn't explain. It just lets us feel what she's feeling physically. We're in the heat of the moment through the body. Okay, on to technique number 5, interior monologue. Interior monologue is when we follow a character's stream of thought in real time, often as they try to process, interpret, or make meaning from what's happening. This kind of interiority tends to be reflective. Why did that happen? What does it mean? It tends to be layered. I feel this, but also that. It's contradictory. I'm proud of her, but I also resent her. And it's intimate. It lets us live inside the character's emotional and intellectual reality as they're forming it. Unlike a micro thought drop, which is quick, or a body cue, which is nonverbal, interior monologue unfolds across several lines. It allows your character to work through complex feelings, question their own thoughts or memories, try to assign meaning to the moment. And it reveals how they see themselves in relation to others. It's not exposition, it's not a thought dump, it's a focused glimpse of conscious, emotional processing tied to the moment at hand. It's the character's thoughts and feelings presented directly to the reader. For example, in My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferranti, Elena's internal voice is often conflicted and self-conscious. She admires Lila. She also envies her. She's driven to prove herself, but fears she'll always come second. I was good at writing. I was very good. So why did Maestro Ferraro speak only of Lila? Why did he never mention me? This is interior monologue in action. She's reacting to a specific moment. We feel the emotional cost of the moment, not just through what happened, but through how she interprets it. It reflects her insecurity and longing, shows her searching for answers, and contradicts itself because feelings are messy. Interior monologue is most powerful when the stakes are emotional and personal. The character is making sense of a shift, a slight, or a surprise. So if something meaningful happens, ask, what's the story this character is telling herself about what just happened? That question almost always unlocks powerful interior monologue. Okay, we covered a lot, so let's recap. We talked about one of the most powerful but slippery tools in a writer's toolkit, character interiority, that private moment-to-moment experience that lets the reader feel what it's like to be your character from the inside out. We started with the two biggest pitfalls I see in early drafts. Too little interiority, so the story moves, but we're stuck on the outside, and too much interiority. The story stalls under the weight of overthinking or reflection. I also walked you through 5 essential techniques to weave interiority into your scenes with rhythm and restraint. Number 1, micro-thought drops, tiny flashes of thought or judgment that add emotional texture without slowing down the scene. Number 2, implied interiority, emotions shown through gesture, silence, or subtext when the character can't name what they feel. Number 3, half-revealed thoughts, interiority that hints at a deeper emotion without fully articulating it, letting the reader lean in and fill the gap. Number 4, embodied interiority, physical sensations that mirror hidden emotion when the character's body speaks before they do. And number 5, interior monologue, a deeper dive into real-time thought, especially when your character is working through contradiction, insecurity, or emotional shifts, and trying to make meaning of what just happened. Each of these techniques gives you a different level of access into your character's inner life, and the key is knowing when to use a whisper and when to turn up the volume. Because in the end, your story doesn't just need movement, it needs meaning. And interiority is what transforms action into emotion and plot into resonance. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.